Talks between Samsung Electronics and its labor union resumed this morning, but the union later announced that talks have collapsed due to management's refusal to compromise, and that the strike will go ahead tomorrow. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung has met with Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi in his hometown Andong. The two leaders agreed to work together on energy and supply chains amid the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. U.S. President Donald Trump says Washington could strike Iran again if negotiations fail, saying he had been an hour away from ordering an attack before postponing it. Meanwhile, Iranian state media revealed that Tehran's latest peace proposal involves ending hostilities on all fronts, including Lebanon and the exit of U.S. forces from areas close to Iran. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. Samsung Electronics labor union has announced that wage mediation talks had collapsed after management rejected a compromise proposal, meaning a planned full-scale strike is set to go ahead on Thursday. The mediator, the National Labor Relations Commission, on Tuesday presented a compromise proposal aimed at bridging the gap between labor and management. Acceptance of the proposal by Samsung Electronics had been expected to pave the way for a tentative agreement between labor and management. The two sides were believed to have narrow differences on most major issues till Wednesday morning, but negotiations ultimately broke down. President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi had a meeting on Tuesday in Lee's hometown of Andong. They agreed to bolster cooperation on energy and supply chains amid instability in the Middle East. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jang-min starts us off.
The South Korean president himself received his Japanese guest in his hometown of Andong, along with traditional honor guards. President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi reaffirmed on Tuesday their bilateral partnership in the face of global uncertainties.
취임 후 벌써 네 번째 이렇게 만나게 됩니다. 그야말로 한일 간의 셔틀 외교의 진면목을 보여주는 것이라고 생각합니다.
I believe it's very important that we continue developing good relations between Japan and Korea through the leadership of you, Mr. President, and me to play a pivotal role for a stable Indo-Pacific.
The leaders have agreed to strengthen cooperation on supply chains and energy supply amid instability in the Middle East.
양국 간 LNG 협력을 확대하는 한편 원유 수급 및 비축과 관련한 정보 공유와 소통 채널 또한 심화해 나가기로 하였습니다.
We agreed upon strengthening bilateral energy security, including energy supply and a swap arrangement on crude oil, petroleum products, and LNG.
The two leaders also reaffirmed the importance of the trilateral cooperation with the U.S. President Lee also called for South Korea, Japan, and China to cooperate and seek areas of common interest. On historical issues, they agreed on specific procedures for DNA analysis of the remains excavated from Chosei coal mine in Japan, where Korean forced laborers were killed when the mine flooded in 1942. Also discussed was regional peace and security, including North Korea. After dinner, the leaders watched a Korean traditional firework festival called Chulbulnori, combined with a pansori performance. The Blue House says the welcome for Takaichi has been arranged to match the level of a welcome for a state guest, hoping it'll serve as an opportunity for the two leaders to further strengthen their personal bond and trust. Yoon Jang-min, Arirang News, Andong.
Local elections are entering a decisive phase with just a day left till official campaigning begins here in South Korea. The National Election Commission stressed strict guidelines ahead of the intense period. Our political correspondent An Sang-jin covers the details.
With Korea's local elections around 2 weeks away, political parties are racing against time as official campaigning only kicks off on May 21st. Election campaigning will continue up until June 2nd, one day before Election Day. During a 13-day campaign period, candidates may deliver public speeches and hold debates between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., though loudspeakers and recording equipment will only be permitted until 9 p.m. Election authorities also reiterated strict regulations against election misinformation, especially the creation or distribution of deepfake campaign materials, which have been banned for 90 days before the vote. Spreading false information or defamatory posts about candidates on social media could also result in legal penalties. Meanwhile, ballot printing for the local and parliamentary by-elections officially began on May 18th, effectively locking candidate names onto voting papers. This entails that the first deadline has passed for rival camps to unify contenders in closely fought districts, since names are already on ballots, pressuring split votes. Nearly 8,000 candidates registered for this local election, and among them, more than 500 are expected to secure victory uncontested. According to the National Election Commission, roughly 13% of the electoral districts had only a single registered candidate, which marks the second highest number of uncontested victories since local elections were introduced. The final figure could still shift if candidates withdraw before Election Day, but the unusually high number of automatic wins has already hinted at political competition and regional party dominance ahead of the June 3rd vote. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington are moving towards follow-up talks on security cooperation, with new security working groups expected soon. This comes as Seoul's push for nuclear-powered submarines is also entering a more formal stage, with a broader government plan due later this month. Our Oh Soo-young has more.
Korea and the United States will soon launch working groups to implement key agreements on civil nuclear cooperation and nuclear-powered submarines, as agreed between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Donald Trump last year. Seoul's Foreign Ministry said on Wednesday that the US Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Alison Hooker plans to lead a US delegation to Korea in the coming weeks. This follows talks with First Vice Foreign Minister Park Yun-joo in Washington on Tuesday local time. The US State Department said this would be an interagency delegation to launch bilateral working groups aimed at implementing understandings reached during Trump's visit to Korea last October. Those understandings were outlined in a joint fact sheet spanning both economic and security cooperation. On the security side, the allies are looking to advance major strategic projects, including Seoul's development of nuclear-powered submarines and greater rights over civilian uranium enrichment and spent nuclear fuel reprocessing for peaceful purposes. According to materials submitted by the Defense Ministry on Wednesday to the National Assembly, the Navy has formally asked the Joint Chiefs of Staff to approve operational requirements for nuclear-powered submarines, including capability targets, force size and deployment timelines. A broader government plan is also expected later this month, setting out construction principles and non-proliferation guidelines. At Tuesday's meeting, Park and Hooker also discussed ways to further develop the Korea-US alliance, with Washington reiterating its commitment of extended deterrence to Seoul. The talks also touched on economic cooperation and regional security issues. Both sides reaffirmed the importance of freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz and other international waterways, as instability in the Middle East keeps pressure on global supply routes. Park also briefed US officials on this week's Korea-Japan summit in Andong, reaffirming Seoul's push for stronger ties with Tokyo and trilateral cooperation with Washington. Park earlier met with Andrew Baker, a senior White House National Security Council official. Seoul says both sides backed close coordination on joint fact sheet consultations, while also discussing the recent US-China summit, Korean Peninsula issues, and the Middle East. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Washington could still launch military strikes on Iran if negotiations fail, despite pausing a planned attack earlier this week. The warning comes as Tehran pushes a new peace proposal and reports emerge of growing diplomatic pressure from regional allies to avoid further escalation. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Tuesday that the United States may still strike Iran if negotiations fail, warning that military action could come within days. Speaking at the White House, Trump said he had been about an hour away from approving an attack before postponing it following a new proposal from Tehran aimed at ending the recent U.S.-Israeli conflict.
I was an hour away. We were all set to go. Yeah, it was all done. The boats, the ships are all loaded. They're loaded to the brim, and we were all set to start.
Trump said Iran's leaders are pushing for a deal, but stressed Washington remains prepared to act militarily if talks break down. He also revealed that Chinese President Xi Jinping promised during their summit last week that Beijing would not provide weapons or military equipment to Iran. According to Axios, Trump met with his national security team on Monday evening to review military options. The report said several Arab leaders urged caution, warning that Iranian retaliation could threaten regional oil facilities and infrastructure. Meanwhile, Iran's latest proposal reportedly calls for an end to hostilities across the region, the withdrawal of U.S. forces from areas near Iran, sanctions relief, and the release of frozen Iranian assets. Iran also says Washington has shown more flexibility on allowing limited peaceful nuclear activity under international supervision, though the United States has not confirmed any concessions in the talks. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Beijing for a state visit, just 4 days after U.S. President Donald Trump concluded his trip to China. According to Chinese state media on Tuesday, Putin's latest visit is his 25th to China. The two sides are expected to discuss economic and energy cooperation, as well as international and regional issues during the summit talks. Xi and Putin have now met more than 40 times, far more frequently than Xi has ever met with any Western leader. This year also marks 30 years since China and Russia established a strategic partnership, and 25 years since the two countries signed their treaty of friendship and cooperation. The 2026 Overseas Korean Adoptees Gathering kicked off in Seoul this week, bringing together nearly 100 participants. The 5-day event aims to reconnect adoptees with their mother country and foster cultural identity. Our Chung Il-im was there.
95 different stories from 14 different countries gathered in Seoul on Monday, the opening ceremony of the Overseas Korean Adoptees Gathering hosted by OKAG marked the beginning of a powerful collective homecoming.
I do not speak Korean. I do not understand all the rules and customs of the culture, but I do bibimbap every chance I get. Only later did I circle back to questions of identity and origin. What I can tell you from my own experience is this: my Korean story has just begun.
For organization leaders who have dedicated their lives to supporting this community, this return represents a monumental chapter.
You will still have a need to find something that is beyond what your adoptee family can give you, because normally you will not look the same. You will find it very common to have the same kind of questions and have the same kind of doubts. So I think going back for us is a way to deal with that, and we support each other while we are here.
That ongoing journey moves straight into the heart of traditional Korean culture today. Participants gathered at Namsan-gol Hanok Village to experience a tea ceremony and an etiquette classroom, taking their first steps towards practicing customs they had never known before. For participants like Matthias from Sweden, it's also an exploration of a modern, fast-paced city.
So I've just been walking around, feeling the vibe of the city, and just enjoying my time here, really. There's not really much to do back home if you're trying to go out at 11, 12 p.m., which is completely different from Seoul. So it's been really fun, and yeah, it's very different. It's still just a good chance for me to explore more and learn more about where I'm from.
Another way participants connect with their roots is through food. Separated from their birth countries from a very young age, some are even trying traditional 시장 food, such as 빈대떡, for the first time.
Whether they're searching for profound, lifelong answers to their past or simply soaking in the energy of Seoul, this gathering proves that coming home has no single predefined track. Through this event, adoptees embraced their own stories in different ways. Chung Il-im, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. A NATO fighter jet shot down a Ukrainian drone over southern Estonia on Tuesday after it strayed into NATO territory. A Romanian F-16 brought down the drone, which Estonian officials said was most likely aimed at Russian targets. Ukraine apologized for the unintended incident and said Russia's electronic warfare systems were responsible for steering the drone off course. Estonia said it has not granted Ukraine permission to use its airspace to attack Russia. Russia repeated a warning that it would retaliate if Ukrainian drones are launched from Baltic countries. 26 more suspected Ebola deaths were recorded in a single day on Tuesday in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, bringing the total to 131 fatalities with more than 540 suspected cases. The World Health Organization Director General told the World Health Assembly in Geneva he was deeply concerned about the scale and speed of the outbreak and said 6 tons of supplies to fight the virus is set to arrive Tuesday. The virus has now reached Butembo, a city of hundreds of thousands. An American doctor who tested positive and 6 others are being moved to Germany for treatment. There are no approved treatments or vaccines for this strain of Ebola. Thailand on Tuesday cut the visa-free stay period for visitors from more than 90 countries, ending a 60-day exemption introduced in July 2024. Most affected nationalities will now be limited to 30 days, with exact periods varying by country. The Thai government cited security concerns and a confusing visa system as reasons for the change. The new rules take effect 15 days after official publication. Google unveiled its latest artificial intelligence models at its annual developer conference on Tuesday as the company moves to keep pace with rivals OpenAI and Anthropic ahead of their expected stock market listings. Google's centerpiece is Gemini 3.5 Flash, a faster and cheaper model that will now serve as the default across its apps and AI search globally. The company says the new model is its strongest agentic encoding model yet and, quote, 4 times faster than some competitors. Google also launched Gemini Spark, a personal AI agent that can take actions across connected apps on a user's behalf. The new model called Omni was also announced, capable of editing videos and simulating physical environments. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Heavy rain and gusty winds are affecting much of the country today, bringing a sharp end to the recent unusual heat. The heaviest rain is expected from late this afternoon through tomorrow morning, especially across the central regions. Mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province could receive up to 150 millimeters of downpours. Most areas will be seeing 20 to 80 millimeters into Thursday, along with thunderstorms and gusty winds. This rain is helping break the recent early summer heat. Temperatures will stay cool through tomorrow before warmer conditions return again on Friday. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 20 degrees Celsius. Daegu makes it to 18 degrees, which is 12 degrees lower than yesterday. Then Busan will be getting up to 21 degrees. Most of the rain will ease by tomorrow afternoon, so keep an umbrella handy. Till then.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.